We have just gotten our first look at Shattered Veil DLC 3 for Black Ops 6 Zombies, and I believe it has blown a new chunk of the story wide open for us to dissect. Now, I have already made a video going over all of the gameplay stuff and everything we've learned about the map from the blog, so a link to that will be on screen and in this video's description if you want to check it out after we're done with this one. But in this video, I want to focus entirely on the storyline aspects because everything seems to be meshing together from Chaos to Vanguard. It's wild, and I want to talk a little about potential connections to Samuel Richtofen, Edward Richtofen's son we see in the trailer, the new design for the Disciples, what it means and ties to unfinished plot threads from Black Ops 4 to Black Ops Cold War. All of that and more in this video, so stay tuned until the very end. Before getting into what's there in the trailer, I wanted to take a detour to discuss what wasn't. There is an unusually small amount of character dialogue in this trailer compared to the trailers we normally get for an upcoming Zombies experience. We usually hear the characters react to different story beats along the map and get an idea for what is to come for the plot. However, this time, other than a cold open line from Maya and a small blurb from Richtofen at the end, we only really get a line from the Sam AI in the trailer.
Can you even believe this place?
It is so nice to meet you face to face, Plate.
You don't trust me, fine, but you cannot trust her.
While some people may be quick to say that this is due to AI issues with voice actors, that's almost certainly not the case. The only recast we've ever had since the launch of the game that's confirmed to any degree is Sam's voice actor, Julie Nathanson, and yes, she gets the dialogue we do hear here. Also, with the Season 3 trailer, we've gotten a videotape from none other than Hudson, and he has a new voice actor once again.
If you're watching this, guess I didn't make it through. Tough shit. Something stinks around here. I couldn't put my finger on it. But now, the company's compromised. Don't think it's Menendez or the Russians or any state actor. Could be goddamn men from Mars for all I know. They're crafty. Use war and chaos to mask their stench. Once I caught a whiff, they've been in our shadow for years, all through Vietnam, Afghanistan, Russia, even the goddamn number station. Whoever they are, they've done a hell of a job covering their tracks. Almost missed them. Almost. Putting together a file. Code names, missing documents. I didn't get the chance to hunt these bastards down. So you're gonna have to clean up my unfinished business.
I don't know how many times he's been replaced now. I think this is like the 4th or 5th time. I think this makes sense though. The actors are constantly busy. It doesn't necessarily mean that this had something to do with a strike. It could just be who they had in Cold War was not available now. They might have been busy with something else, or maybe didn't want the role, or they wanted a certain price that Activision could not fulfill. There's many different other angles that could be at play. And considering that the tomb does have dialogue from all of the characters apart from Peck, it seems like the lack of dialogue on the map and in the ending cutscene was down to other reasons as opposed to a strike. Sam's actor has left for unknown reasons, possibly related to the AI issues as well, which is similar to why Peck's voice actor changed between Cold War and Black Ops 6. So if a strike is not the real reason why there's no major dialogue in the trailer, I think the lack of it may potentially imply that a lot of the dialogue here is much more story heavy on this map than we saw on, for example, the tomb, and they are trying to not give away too much of what's about to be unveiled. Recent concerns with Black Ops 6, including some of my own, have been with the story and the way the characters deliver it, with every single character not being fleshed out enough or just misremembering major beats of who they are as people. Plotlines seem to be abandoned here and there. Perhaps then they are improving it for this map in response to feedback, and they are holding back to try and surprise us and to avoid spoilers, with writing that is a bit more in line with what we'd expect. I'm hoping so, but I'm not exactly sure. But I found the relative lack of beat-to-beat story dialogue like the other trailers had very noticeable, and wanted to give my 2 cents on the topic. Another thing we don't see in the trailer is the Pack-a-Punch machine. I won't harp on gameplay for long since, like I said, this is mainly a story video and I've already made a video on gameplay stuff, but I think this may have story implications as well. I think it's quite possible that the reason we don't see it here is that it's not just the traditional Pack-a-Punch machine quest in Shattered Vale. It could potentially be the Chaos Map's Pack-a-Punch machine, especially considering some of the stuff we'll talk about later in this video. And I think this makes total sense because I've seen many people on Twitter asking to see the Chaos Pack-a-Punch on Citadel Daymore and the Tomb, considering they were heavy Chaos-related maps. So maybe Treyarch have responded to that feedback, and they're trying to make this map feel more unique, especially considering it seems to be yet another map that's taking major Chaos inspiration. Or could the Pack-a-Punch be hidden behind some sort of secret door, and they want to let us enjoy that for the first time when we play? Either way, moving on to what is in the trailer, and is confirmed. With one quick thing to note, in the blog, we learn that the Raygun Mark II was outright scavenged from the Dark Aether by Project Janus. While this is likely due to Richtofen also having some knowledge on the weapon's location prior to everything being thrown in there in Tag der Toten, it also opens the doors for them to pull basically anything from the prior Aether story they want out in the future, and I think this is what's been happening in the past anyways. I mean, the Raygun's been there since Black Ops Cold War. It's never given an official reason for why it's there, but we've always just assumed it was retrieved from the Dark Aether by Requiem, and that seems to be the case. So it's good that we're getting a hard confirmation here. We need more of this stuff. Now that we've gotten a chance to see the mansion, Colton Hall as it's officially called now in all its glory, we can really start to piece together the story behind this map. I think the biggest mover of the story, outside of the rivalry between Richtofen and the Sam AI, is going to be whoever was in this portrait. Likely, as I've said, probably Josiah Shem. We saw in one of the earlier Twitter teasers this portrait of a man decked out in the Chaos Cult robes, but seemingly tinted blue. We now see this character potentially returning in the map as the new enemy, the Elder Disciple. The blog states, strange floating apparitions have been seen flitting about the sprawling gardens and rambling mansion estate. Known to some as Elder Disciples, these powerful enemies likely spell trouble for the crew. Elder Disciples gain strength as they empower the zombies around them while summoning more undead to join the battle. Using their dark magic, these fetid floating carcasses can force their allies to evolve more quickly, allowing a lowly zombie to more rapidly transform into a doppelgast or some other sinister form. Eliminate the Elder Disciple before their forces grow too powerful, keeping it at a distance to avoid the scream it lets loose against players who draw too close. The deadly enemy grows more agitated as it takes damage, so try to get the job done fast. The robes being the same immediately draws connections between the two characters. However, I believe we can interpret a large amount of the story that's much deeper than just this disciple is the guy in the portrait. But this disciple could very well be Josiah Shem, and the disciples are Shem's folly. Let's take it back for a moment to Black Ops Cold War. During the ending season of Cold War Zombies, we got lots of intel that I believe was initially slated to tease stuff for Vanguard Zombies. The teaser of interest I want to start with is the note from Sparagmos about the Crystal Axe, the wonder weapon for the map that he literally built. It says, the Crystal Axe, forged in the pools of Etheria, 2 forms the Crystal Axe shall take. The Savager, sharp as the mountains in the badlands of Dipserax. The Storm, powerful as the winds on the ocean of Zephoria. For if you are to defeat the one who is many, it will take both to tear him apart. The Devoured shall be reborn. Their scattered ashes shall be reformed. The Forsaken's torment will be undone when the old ones reign once more. From Sparagmos. In the second paragraph, we get a short poem. It says that whoever the Devoured were, their scattered ashes will be reformed, and the Forsaken's torment will be undone when the old ones reign once more. I think now it's clear as day that this poem was actually teasing much further into the future than just the launch of Vanguard Zombies and its old ones. Let's break it down line by line so I can explain why. The Devoured shall be reborn. The Devoured are clearly meant to represent the Dark Aether demons of Vanguard Zombies. It was in this game that we began to learn more about how the Forsaken could consume his enemies and steal their powers. It was how he grew to such great strength and how he ruled his army, and Treyarch hammered it home by having the Forsaken use all of the field upgrade powers against us in the battle as his attacks in that epic boss fight and conclusion, then teaching us with Vanguard that each of the field upgrades was the power of the separate demons. Their scattered ashes shall be reformed. Well, initially we thought this statement to be a continuation of the first line, and the there was simply referring to the Devoured. I now think we missed the point back during Cold War here. By this point, we had already long since learned about the burning down of Richtofen's house by Weaver and Samantha Maxis with a child inside that they both regretted dearly. And we finally have that confirmed to be Richtofen's child and wife in the ending of the same map, Forsaken. And we know if the Vanguard gods were devoured, then they surely would not be ashes. This to me suggests that this line was meant to tease the potential return of the burned wife and son of Richtofen to life. They would be ashes, and the use of the vague there in the sentence is because the wife only retconned into the burning of the house in this season of Intel. Prior, it had only been mentioned to be Samuel, hadn't been named. This makes sense. For example, the burn note of Mr. Peaks has burn marks around it, and we even have drawings of seemingly Samuel all over Shattered Vale as we see in the trailer, and he's got all of these toys, and one of the drawings we've gotten a full res image of that depicts the Liberty Falls intro where they all burn, which is a nightmare Richtofen had, not the truth, when they actually died inside the house itself, which seems to suggest Samuel is haunting him from within the dark ether, his soul, his essence, his ghost. The Forsaken's torment will be undone. This one is interesting because I think the meaning was deceptive. I think this part, and frankly the entire Intel in general, are kind of meant to have a meaning at face value that makes you disregard it, but then have a real and deeper meaning later on when looking back, like the Battlefields of the Great War statement in the Origins intro cutscene.
On the battlefields of the Great War,
which was a double entendre meaning World War I, but also this was the battlegrounds of the Great War between the Apothecans and Keepers and humanity. And likewise, with the Forsaken's torment, while they wanted you to think here that it meant the torment inflicted by the Forsaken would be undone, I think it is the opposite. Instead, I think they mean the torment inflicted onto the Forsaken would be undone, as I believe following his containment at the end of Cold War, he gets lobotomized and used as a battery for the Project Janus experiment, the SAM AI, essentially powering her and using his mimicking abilities to bring Samantha Maxis to life from a snapshot of who she was. So I believe that on this map, us defeating her, which I think is inevitably going to happen as we side with Richtofen over the SAM AI, as Richtofen's line in the trailer seems to suggest.
You don't trust me, fine, but you cannot trust her.
And we will turn from wanting vengeance on Richtofen to empathizing with him when we learn about his history with his family and what Weaver did. Whether he knows who Richtofen actually is or not at this current moment in time, he's about to find out, and I believe that shutting the SAM AI down would essentially kill Zykov for good too, in the containment chamber's core. This is something I've been discussing on the channel for a long time in prior videos. When the Old Ones reign once more, again I've discussed this before, but I suspect that the Old Ones are referring to the creatures much older than just the Vanguard demons. Whilst they might be Old Ones as well, there are many Old Ones. In another couple Cold War intels, we get the phrase Old Ones used by Zykov. While he's partially lying here, as he is the Forsaken, and not cluing us in to who he actually is at the time, the rest of the intel is still likely true, a half-truth, as across other intels like these, he describes stuff that he does as the Forsaken that is real, and just pretends to be a different person, this innocent Zykov just witnessing the events. Here, he says that the Old Ones are encountered less and less as the Forsaken grows in power. This goes back to a theory I've discussed when talking in prior videos. Could the Shadow Smiths potentially be these Old Ones? And the reason that we've never seen them is that every game so far was during a period they were relatively in hiding. I think it's likely. The Old Ones are described as beings who have been at war since near the start of the Dark Aether's creation, which would be an unfathomably long time ago, potentially as long if not longer than the Dark Aether demons from Vanguard were alive. We hear about Cortifex's birth and patricide, killing both his parents to assume the throne of their empire. We learn of the Nether Wars. This suggests there was a pretty large society already in place with the wars long ongoing at the point Cortifex was born, marking he and the rest of the demons implied to be relatively close in age, as much younger than these Old Ones. For example, even some of the high-ranking Apothecans were called Old Ones. I assume the Shadow Man was one as well back in the day. But really, the true Old Ones, or the oldest ones, could be none other than the infamous Shadow Smiths. These mysterious beings, I believe, are about to come to the forefront of the storyline and be set up as the main antagonist after we defeat the SAM AI, and we will side with Richtofen to help keep these evils at bay, beckoning the return of the original characters. So if this prophecy of Sparagmos is actually about all of that, it definitely seems like most of the events are about to come to pass in Shattered Vale. We've made videos in the past discussing the evidence for the idea that the Shadowsmiths are about to step into the limelight of the Dark Aether story in Mansion. We know that the Sentinel Artifact's activation is powered by shards of Tempus, shards of time harvested directly here at Liberty Falls' mansion, and we know we are likely about to come face to face with the Sam AI and take her down. This pretty much sets up everything as prophesied by Sparagmos. But I think we can go even further than that. I think the largest piece of evidence here is that Josiah Shem actually is Sparagmos. Firstly, we know that Josiah was an occultist and seemingly in communication with something in the dark ether. We have theorized before that it is a Shadow Smith. And if so, it would explain why Sparagmos talks of these old ones so devoutly. And this is probably what Blanchard was referring to.
I'd like to believe Josiah Shem didn't know what he was doing when he had his flock build the place. If he did, then he got what he deserved. Shem's folly. Ain't that the truth? Shit like that doesn't just happen without other forces at work. Granddad knew that.
These are who the cult was talking to. Sparagmos did, after all, create the crystal axe to defeat the Forsaken. And in the intel, he says outright that one of the crystals was with him and could only be given by him, meaning that he must be alive in the dark ether to send the crystal through the gateway in the sky to us during the quest in Forsaken. And now that we see a portrait of who is the likely Josiah, dressed in the same garb as the Elder Disciple, it begins to line up perfectly with what we've heard about a mass ritual by his flock to ascend into the world promised to them by the voice Josiah had been hearing. The one difference in the outfits is the number of medals on the chest. While human, Josiah wears a single medal, the same as any old regular member of the Order of Chaos. However, the Elder Disciple wears multiple glowing medals, much more in line with the decorations the High Priest of Chaos would wear. This seems to suggest that he ascended successfully and became a higher rank in this cult, potentially just an offshoot of the Chaos Priesthood, accentuated by the fact we see the Chaos Story symbols coming out of the Elder Disciple. These alchemical symbols floating all over with this light blue turquoisey colour. What nails this even further is that Cold War's intel also tells us where the disciples originally come from. By my hand shall the Forsaken be undone. He may have enslaved my disciples, but he shall not enslave me. The disciples were once disciples of Sparagmos, but after the Forsaken began consuming the Elder Gods to steal their powers, he eventually took them as his own, as one of the ranks in his hierarchy, his army. And considering that we see the new one described as the Elder Disciple, it surely is a reference to Elder God. I think you see the picture I'm trying to paint here. I believe that Josiah Shem and his flock were listening to an old one, which is just what he calls the Shadow Smiths, and successfully completed their ritual to ascend to the dark ether, turning them into Elder Disciples and the disciples under his command. They all died, they all perished in a horrific sacrifice that weakened the veil at this mansion, and we are about to shatter it on this map, which might have been the Shadow Smith's plan all along, to try and break free into our world. And Richtofen, whilst he's been trapped in the dark ether, may have gotten a glimpse of this horror that lies beyond if he wasn't even already aware of it. And in defeating Sam, they can try and break through this weakened veil, setting up an epic finale with Janus Towers. And they will try and pull the original crew back to life. Josiah will then give his new form a different name, as he left his human body behind, calling himself Sparagmos following his sacrifice. No longer human, he transcended to almost a god-like status. However, soon after, the Forsaken would begin to take power, forcing Sparagmos/Shem into hiding as he bided his time and waited for the chance to defeat the Forsaken. In the meantime, he would use chaos magic to write these prophecies, and when the time came, help take down the Forsaken. And now that the opportunity has come at last, as the pivotal characters driving the Dark Ether story to his doorstep at his mansion, he comes back to try and finish the prophecy and help the old ones return to power. This would line up perfectly with some of our ideas about how the ending of this game plays out, particularly the Shadowsmith stepping up as the main antagonist, and potentially they were even the demons that were communicating to us in the super Easter egg for Black Ops Cold War.
It is done. Here, a reward for your offerings.
They have been setting events in motion for a very long time, and with Richtofen successfully restoring his family to life, if he gains the power of the Sentinel artifact, could incidentally allow them to return. It would also allow Treyarch to wrap up the story of Sparagmos, who was heavily implied to be alive and attempting to return power to the old ones and never reappeared. So many people I see on Twitter asking, are they ever going to mention Sparagmos again? They could do it now. In fact, they could take out 3 beats, explain how all of the Order stuff ties in, explain how Shem ties in, explain how Sparagmos ties in with all all one fellow swoop. It may also give us some more concrete ties between the Chaos story and what was happening in the Dark Aether at the time, considering we see how obvious the Chaos Priest inspired robes are, and with the shards of Tempus relating to potentially even Sparagmos, maybe even parts of the crystal acts were made of it. Polymorphic crystal, I have no idea, or is that completely unrelated? When thinking of the shards of Tempus and looking at the Shattered Veil logo, it really reminds me of the 9 ending cutscene where the High Priest of Chaos reaches into the portal, but he's attacked by Prima Materia, but luckily his symbols on his mask protect him, but he ends up scarred, and you can see as it shatters, it's a similar light blue. So was this always just a Dark Aether portal and we just didn't know it at the time? He was peering into another dimension. Especially now we know that the Sentinel artifacts seem to originate from the Dark Aether, and it seems like the 9 could have even been Dark Aether gods, the Order could be Dark Aether gods, Shem might end up actually being Sparagmos. It's all getting wild here. But let me know what you think. Do you agree that Josiah Shem could be Sparagmos? And what about the Chaos Pack-a-Punch machine? Am I crazy for thinking it may return? I hope so. It would give the map more flair, especially for those Black Ops 4 Chaos enjoyers. But yeah, there's a lot of beats Trek needs to get right for this map. There's a lot of Chaos beats seemingly being integrated here. I hope they do the Chaos and Sam story justice though. Richtofen needs to get the limelight. I do worry that Chaos may take precedent over him, which is definitely not the way to go, and has been what's happening every single map so far, which is the complete opposite of what we thought this game would be about. When we got the Forsaken's ending, we thought this game was going to all be about Richtofen. If you told me back then Black Ops 6 will all be about the Chaos story and less about Richtofen, I would have said you're mad. But hopefully they blend and gel everything together well so it all makes sense and everything gets equal limelight. But they're juggling a lot of pieces here, especially when we have a million characters, so it's a bit hard to have faith that everything's going to be adequately done. But I hope at least Richtofen and the Chaos stuff makes good sense. But anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for latest and greatest Call of Duty news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.